What if I told you one man sitting thousands of miles away brought an entire film industry to its knees? Not with bombs, not with guns, but with bandwidth. This isn't fiction. This is the true story of how one rogue genius, nicknamed Dotcom, helped trigger a piracy tsunami that flooded Hollywood. To some, he was a genius, a revolutionary who believed in a free and open internet. To others, he was a digital pirate, a man who built an empire on stolen content. But no matter what side you're on, one thing's for sure: the rise and fall of Dotcom is one of the wildest stories in the history of the internet. This is the story of a kid from Germany who became one of the most wanted men in cyberspace and the forces that brought him crashing down. Stay with us because what you're about to hear has never been fully told. Until now. Kiel, 1974. A cold grey port city on the edge of West Germany. This is where the myth begins. Kim was born to a Finnish mother from Turku and a German father. Even as a baby, he was crossing borders culturally, linguistically, and politically. He would later claim to have always felt different, bigger, smarter, faster. And by the time he was a teenager, those feelings turned into action. But not schoolwork, not sports, but hacking. It was the early 90s. The internet was new. The rules were not written yet, and that was all the invitation Kim needed. He took the alias Kimball after Dr. Richard Kimball, the falsely accused fugitive from the hit TV series The Fugitive, because soon he would become a fugitive himself. From a teenager's bedroom in West Germany, Kim claimed to have broken into some of the most secure systems on Earth: NASA, the Pentagon, Citibank. Some thought it was bluster. Others swore it was real. What's undeniable is this: he got noticed by the police, by prosecutors, and by the press. Even then, he was playing a game of spectacle. He was not content to be a silent hacker in the shadows. He wanted to be famous and feared. He loved the spotlight. And in his own twisted way, he actually started to get the spotlight. But that would cost him a lot later. In 1998, at just 20 years old, Kim was arrested in Germany. The charges? Selling stolen phone numbers, cracking phone lines, getting paid in the shadows of cyberspace. The final count, 11 convictions for computer fraud, 10 for data espionage. The court called it youthful foolishness. Kim called it a starting point. He avoided jail time with a suspended sentence, but he would not slow down. By the late 90s, he rebranded himself again, this time as a cyber entrepreneur. He leaned into the dot-com boom like a surfer riding a tsunami. And for a moment, it worked. But where others saw business models, Kim saw chaos and opportunity inside that chaos. In 2001, he pulled one of his first major stunts on the stock market. There was a struggling startup in Europe called Dotcom, on the verge of collapse. No profits, no future. So Kim threw in 375,000 euros and then faked a press release claiming that he was investing 50 million euros more. The media ran with it. The market surged. The company's stock price skyrocketed. Kim sold at the peak, walked away with 1.5 million euros in profit. Was that brilliant? Yes. But was that legal? Absolutely not. German authorities charged him with insider trading, and Kim, true to form, ran. Thailand 2002, far from Germany's reach, Kim tried something new. He faked his own suicide. Online, word spread. Kimball was dead, lost in despair, gone forever. Then, days later, a post appeared. He was alive. And now he wasn't just a hacker. He was royalty, self-declared as His Royal Highness King Kimball I, ruler of the Kimpire. Absurd? Yeah, but the press ran with it, and that's all Kim ever needed. Attention. The German government eventually tracked him down. He was deported, put on trial again, this time for embezzlement and fraud. But once again, he walked away with a suspended sentence. No prison, no royal punishment, just more headlines. After that, Kim disappeared again, this time to Hong Kong. In 2003, he registered Kimpire Limited. And once again, he built a corporate maze filled with shell companies, press releases, and grand promises. His crown jewel was something called Trendax. It was pitched as an AI-powered hedge fund, a platform so advanced it could beat the stock market using machine learning. It sounded like something from 2050. But there was a problem. Trendax was not licensed. It wasn't real. It couldn't take a single dollar of actual investment. It was a hologram, but Kim was a master illusionist. And people, investors, journalists, and fans bought into it. Because when Dotcom sold you something, it didn't have to be real. It just had to be louder than the truth. And this was just Act 1, because what happens next would take him from digital illusions to a very real empire that would reshape the future of piracy put Bollywood and Hollywood on high alert, and trigger a manhunt that crossed oceans. The founding of Megaupload. In 2005, the real empire began. Kim.com, who had legally changed his name that same year, launched Megaupload, an online file-sharing platform that would transform him from a digital rogue into a tech kingpin. At first glance, Megaupload looked like a gift. It was simple. You uploaded your file, be it a photo album, a work document, or that movie that you swore you owned. And in return, you got a unique download link. You could store your files in the cloud, you could share them with your friends, no more clunky email attachments, no more scratched DVDs or burned CDs. Just click, copy, and share. For many, it felt like magic. For others, it felt like freedom. For Kim.com, it felt like a revolution. But here is what most people didn't know. While you were sending a song to your buddy or sharing vacation pics with your family, you were also helping fuel what persecutors would later describe as a massive global piracy conspiracy. It sounds dramatic, maybe too dramatic, but that's what makes this story so messy, so electric, and so hard to pin down. By early 2012, Megaupload was not just another startup. It was a behemoth. Over 60 million registered users, an average of 50 million visitors every single day. At least 1 billion people had used the site at one point or another. Think about that. 1 in 7 people on Earth. Megaupload was the 13th most visited site in the world, ahead of Twitter, LinkedIn, and Instagram. It wasn't a niche service, it was the main road of the internet. In terms of raw bandwidth, it was monstrous. Some reports said Megaupload accounted for 4% of all internet traffic worldwide. That's more than the combined bandwidth of some countries. Behind the curtain, the numbers were just as staggering. Kim and his team were pulling in an estimated $175 million in revenue, mostly from premium subscriptions and advertising. They employed over 150 staff around the world, they flew in private jets, they partied in rooftop suites. They lived in mansions the size of shopping malls. Kim's own estate in New Zealand, the infamous Dotcom mansion, looked like something out of a Bond villain's dream. Panoramic views, private elevators, an indoor pool, and a garage full of sports cars. And he wasn't shy about it. He filmed music videos in his mansion. He gave interviews from his hot tub. He was a billionaire cartoon character come to life, flamboyant, absurd, and totally self-aware. But while he was living large, the entertainment industry was sounding the alarm. To Hollywood studios, Megaupload was not a clever cloud service. It was a digital black market, a superhighway for stolen content. Blockbuster films were leaked online before they hit theaters. Entire seasons of TV shows, platinum-selling music albums, popular software, all of it was there, ready to download in just minutes. No payment, no friction, no trace. But it wasn't just about users uploading content. The US Department of Justice would later claim something more damning, that Kim and his lieutenants encouraged piracy. They allegedly created and ran something called the Uploader Rewards Program. The more popular your uploads, the more traffic you brought in, the more money you got. Cash bonuses for pirates. They were paying people to upload pirated material. According to the FBI, tens of millions in rewards were paid out. In the government's eyes, Megaupload was not merely profiting from piracy, it was built for piracy. It was, they said, a criminal operation wearing the mask of a tech startup, a Trojan horse for copyright theft, hidden behind sleek user design and cloud-based buzzwords. To Kim, this was nonsense. He insisted that Megaupload was a neutral platform, a tool, like a Dropbox or Google Drive, and if some people misused it, that wasn't his fault. He said that they complied with takedown requests, they removed infringing files when asked, that they were doing their best. But the legal argument was not about intent anymore, it was about impact. Whether you thought he was a genius or a grifter, you could not ignore the numbers. Megaupload was big. Too big. And in the post-Napster world, where labels and studios were finally cracking down on file sharing, the US government was not about to let this continue. The clock was ticking. Behind the scenes, a global operation was forming. One involving FBI agents, New Zealand police, federal prosecutors, and a coordinated plan to bring Kim.com down. He didn't know it yet, but his empire was already surrounded. The file-sharing revolution had reached its tipping point, and the fall would be televised. At his peak, Kim.com lived like royalty. A $25 million mansion in New Zealand, a fleet of rare cars, a video game room the size of a nightclub. But behind the glitz, pressure was mounting. Then came January 2012. For most of the world, it was just another year. But for Kim.com, the man who had once ruled the internet's dark mirror, it was the beginning of the end, or at least the end of one empire. Behind closed doors, the United States Department of Justice had been tightening the noose. Years of surveillance, digital forensics, and legal groundwork had culminated in a single moment of action. The indictment was staggering in scope. Kim.com and key Megaupload executives Finn Badaro, Matthias Ortman, and Bram van der Kolk were charged in the Eastern District of Virginia. The allegations? Criminal copyright infringement, money laundering, racketeering, and conspiracy. But in truth, the charges went deeper than just crime. They carried symbolism. The DOJ was not merely looking to dismantle a tech platform. They wanted to make an example. According to the FBI, Megaupload was not a neutral service. It was a $175 million machine built to exploit copyright loopholes. A digital hydra, responsible for over $500 million in damages to media giants around the globe. Music, movies, software, Bollywood and Hollywood alike felt the sting. To the US government, Kim.com was not just running a website. He was leading a cybercrime syndicate. Then came the operation. On January 20, 2012, a quiet suburb outside Auckland, New Zealand became the stage for one of the most dramatic internet arrests in history. As dawn broke over Coatesville, the skies erupted with the roar of helicopters. 2 of them hovered over Dotcom's multi-million-dollar estate, while 76 heavily armed officers descended on the mansion. It was surreal, more battlefield than suburb. Tactical units fanned out across the lush green grounds, automatic rifles drawn, communications jamming. This was war. Inside the palatial residence, Kim.com was jarred awake. In later interviews, he claimed that the raid was so intense he initially feared for his life. He retreated to a panic room. The officers smashed their way in. The man who once styled himself Dr. Evil had been captured, and with him, so was his kingdom. Authorities seized nearly everything. 18 luxury cars, including a Rolls-Royce Phantom with the license plate God, a collection of rare watches, shelves of electronics, and artwork worth hundreds of thousands. Cash and assets totaling $175 million were frozen. Dotcom's life, once a monument to access and audacity, was now boxed and bagged as evidence. 64 bank accounts in multiple countries were locked down. Even his wife Mona's jewelry was confiscated. The once unreachable icon of the internet was now inmate number 2012030-2001 at Mount Eden Prison, Auckland. He claimed mistreatment, dehumanization, and pain. But just over a month later, on February 22nd, a New Zealand judge granted him bail, ruling that he posed no serious flight risk. After all, where could he run? He was too well known, too large figuratively and literally to vanish. Yet, if the raid was the climax, what followed was the real story. Because Kim.com did not fade quietly. He roared back. In June 2012, a massive legal twist shook the case. New Zealand's High Court ruled that the raid was illegal. The warrants used to search his home were declared invalid due to their vague wording. Justice Helen Winkleman criticized police for executing overly broad seizures. It wasn't just a legal blunder, it was an international embarrassment. And it got worse. Despite the faulty warrants, the FBI had already received copies of Kim.com's hard drives, transferred by New Zealand's own law enforcement in violation of local laws. That revelation triggered outrage. How could sovereign laws be bypassed with such ease? Was New Zealand just a pawn in a global chess match? Justice Judith Potter responded in August, granting Dotcom access to roughly $6 million New Zealand dollars in frozen assets to cover legal fees and living expenses. He was also allowed to sell 9 of his seized luxury cars. The man they tried to erase was already reassembling his identity, piece by piece. Meanwhile, the extradition battle transformed into a labyrinth. In May 2012, a local judge ruled that the US would have to share all of its evidence with Dotcom's legal team. It was a win. But that victory was short-lived. The American government protested furiously, and the matter escalated through multiple levels of the New Zealand judiciary. At every turn, Kim's lawyers, led by Queen's Counsel Paul Davidson, fought to expose what they saw as a campaign not for justice, but for punishment. Each appeal became more than a legal maneuver. It became a statement. And Kim embraced his role as digital dissident. By 2014, he launched the Internet Party in New Zealand. Its platform? Privacy. freedom of speech, anti-surveillance, digital sovereignty. He did not just want to win court cases, he wanted to change laws. He held press conferences. He financed campaigns. He helped organize the now infamous Moment of Truth event, where whistleblower Edward Snowden and journalist Glenn Greenwald alleged New Zealand's government was complicit in mass surveillance with the NSA. Prime Minister John Key dismissed it as a conspiracy, but for him, it was a masterstroke. A way to recast himself not as a fugitive, but as a freedom fighter. Not everyone bought it. To some, it was all smoke and mirrors. A PR stunt by a man desperate to control the narrative, but whether you saw a crook or a crusader, you could not look away. And while he battled extradition in court, Kim.com launched his next venture, Mega. Unveiled in 2013, exactly 1 year after the Megaupload raid. Mega was billed as a privacy-first cloud service. Its primary feature? End-to-end encryption. Users could store files without the platform knowing what those files were. Dotcom called it a human right, the right to private, secure digital storage. Within weeks, Mega hit over 1 million registered users. It was a symbolic resurrection, but the peace did not last. Corporate reshuffling, shareholder disputes, and pressure from governments eventually pushed Kim out of his own creation. By 2015, Mega's board had removed him. He no longer had any operational role. Another dream lost, another throne was abdicated. Yet the legal war raged on. In 2017, a New Zealand court ruled that he could be extradited, but not for the original sweeping copyright charges. Instead, the court found grounds under conspiracy to defraud copyright holders. Narrower, more precise, but still dangerous. Kim appealed, of course. The case climbed to the Court of Appeal, then the Supreme Court. In 2020, nearly a decade after the dramatic raid, the Supreme Court made its decision. Yes, he could be extradited, but only after lower courts confirmed it wouldn't violate his rights under the New Zealand law. A partial win, a partial loss. A game is still in progress. By 2022, Kim.com remained in New Zealand. Still a free man, still unextradited, but no longer at the center of tech, no longer launching startups. The digital emperor had become quieter. He remarried, had more children, released music. Yes, music. His 2014 EDM album Good Times even charted in New Zealand. He tweeted, he sparred with journalists online, occasionally he streamed. He was still Kim.com, but smaller, stranger, sadder, still fighting, but from the sidelines. Yet his fingerprints remain everywhere. The rise of encrypted cloud services, the debates over surveillance and digital sovereignty, the increasing battles between big tech, media giants, and governments, the shape of modern copyright law. Even the 2020 streaming wars echo what Megaupload once started. Kim.com's legacy, whether you praise it or curse it, is hard-coded into the fabric of the internet. Because the real story is not just about data, it's about power. Who has it, who loses it, and who shares to steal it back. And in that story, Kim did not just change laws or launch websites. He challenged the very architecture of the modern world. A man who did not wield a weapon, but bandwidth. A man who did not need bullets, just belief. And for that, whether he wins or loses in court, he will never be forgotten. Because Kim.com did not just hack the system, he rewrote the rules.